Thank you for joining me this morning, and we're continuing our study on the subject of the rapture, and we're also talking about the tribulation. As I've mentioned in previous sessions, the tribulation, 7-year tribulation, is not really defined in the Scripture as the 7-year tribulation. It's really defined as the time of Jacob's trouble, or also referred to as Daniel's 70th week. And the reason, that this is important to mention is the fact is that this time frame is not meant for the church. There is no mention of the church during this 7-year time frame, even though people will be saved during the 7-year tribulation or the Daniel 70th week. It's not meant for the church because the church has been taken away before judgment came, and that's the purpose of this study, is to help you and I to understand better what the Scripture has to say in regard to the end times that are approaching very quickly. I know that the rapture is very close simply because we're seeing all the signs of things that are going to be happening during the tribulation on the horizon. One of those being the battle in Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39, which concerns Iran and Russia and the other nations that will come against Israel. We see that they're already aligned right now for that to happen. That could happen any day, any moment. And I personally believe the rapture will take place before Ezekiel 38 and 39. And even though the Scripture does not say that in particular, the reason I do believe that is because if you read through those chapters, in there, you'll see that it's a time frame where our Creator Yahuwah is going to make his name known to his people, and he's also going to make his name known to the world, because it's going to be such a supernatural defeat of the nations that have come against Israel that people will that the sign will be so great in the sight of Israel, or Yasharel, that they will enter back into covenant relationship with him. Now, they won't necessarily recognize the Messiah at that time. That's not going to come until right before the second coming of the Mashiach, when they call out to him whom they have pierced, and they recognize who the Messiah is. But what's going to help the nation of Yasharel, or Israel, is the fact is this supernatural sign that's going to take place as Yahuwah defeats the enemies of Yasharel, which is going to be a supernatural defeat of these enemies that come against Israel. And again, that's why I believe that the rapture of the church, again, is going to occur before that. So if we see the signs of the tribulation on the horizon, that we know that our time is very short as far as the church is concerned. Now, going back to what we've already talked about in Isaiah chapter 13, we started off in our last session reading from Isaiah 13. And I don't want to take too much time reading verses we've already read, but I am going to go through and just comment a few things about this. And then we want to get into some new verses that I have not read yet. But in verse 9, it says, "Behold, the day of the Lord," or the day of Yahuwah, "comes, cruel both with wrath and fierce anger." And I emphasized in the last video that this day, of course, is not a 24-hour time frame. The day of the Lord, or the day of Yahuwah, is a time frame, and I believe it's much more involved than just this 7-year time frame. But it definitely includes Daniel's 70th week and Jacob's trouble, simply because it makes reference to the fact is that it's a day of anger, it's a day of wrath, and as we read on, we'll see the reasons for this. It says that it's to lay the land or the earth desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners out of it. So the sinners will be destroyed. One of the purposes of the day of Yahuwah is to destroy the sinners off the earth. Now, again, this has nothing to do with the church. See, once you're born again of the Ruach HaKodesh, you're not identified as a sinner anymore. Now, you may still sin, you may still miss it, but you're referred to as the righteous ones. Because even though we haven't experienced our resurrected bodies in the realm of the Ruach, in the realm of the Spirit, we're a new creature, as 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17 says, "Therefore, if any man be in Mashiach, in Messiah, he is a new creature. Didn't say after we get to heaven. Didn't say after we die. It says if any man, or of course any woman, be in Messiah. He is a new creature. Already that way. Not going to be a new creature. He is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things have become new. Again, it's talking about the inward man, the real you, the person that you cannot see. I have a body that I live in just like you. And you see my natural body, but you can't see the real person on the inside. But the real man on the inside is already created in righteousness and true holiness or set apartness. You're already holy, and so when the scripture talks about the righteous ones, it's talking about you and I. So this time frame is not meant for us. It's meant for the sinners, those that have not received the mercy and the forgiveness of Mashiach, of Yahushua HaMashiach. So it's to remove the sinners off the earth. And verse 10 says, for the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in its going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. So this time frame, of course, is also referred to as day of darkness. It's a day of gloominess. That's even mentioned through the prophet Joel and other places, that it's a day of darkness. It's a day of judgment. I will punish, listen to verse 11. It says, I will punish the world for their evil, and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and I will lay the haughtiness of the terrible. See, in other words, what he's saying is that judgment is coming. By the way, we live in a day where there's blasphemers, there's people who are arrogant, who are full of pride, who hate the things of our Creator, and there's coming a judgment for them. There's coming a time frame that they're going to be removed off the earth, and they're going to be brought low, as the scripture talks about. But I'm thankful that I won't have to see this day. I will not have to go through this time frame, and neither will you if you have received the Messiah, received the free gift of salvation, and you've called upon Him, and you've asked Him into your heart, and you believe that He died according to the scriptures for your justification. See, we're justified. We're already made righteous. And that's why we're not the object of Yahuwah's wrath during this time frame. Now, if you also read in Isaiah, and I've read this before, but I want to go back just to read it again to tie in what we're sharing today. In Isaiah chapter 26, this is the verses that I've shared with you that reveal the rapture in the Tanakh, or the Old Testament. In Isaiah chapter 26, verses 19 through 21, it reads, but your dead will live. Of course, this is talking about a resurrection here. And the rapture is a resurrection. It is the resurrection of the righteous ones in Messiah. Their bodies will rise. You who dwell in the dust, wake up and shout for joy. Oh, wow. What a glorious day that's going to be. Your dew is like the dew of the morning. The earth shall give birth to the dead. Go, my people, enter your rooms and shut the door behind you. Hide yourselves for a little while until the wrath has passed by. Now, we just read in Isaiah chapter 13, verse 9, that it's a day of wrath. It's a day of anger. And it says, hide yourself until the wrath has passed by. In other words, there is a time frame. It's going to be 7 years in length. That's why it's referred to as a 7-year tribulation. But it's 7 years in length. There's going to be 21 judgments released on the earth during this time frame. The first 3.5 years will consist of the seal and the trumpet judgments. The last half of the 7-year time frame is called, of course, our Messiah referred to as Great Tribulation. That's where this term that people use is the Great Tribulation. But it's really a time frame. It's a time of great distress. Now, the last 3.5 years will be when the bowl judgments, which are far worse than any, will be released at that time. But keep in mind, the first 3.5 years, 1/3 of the world's population will perish. Approximately 2 billion people will die during the first 3.5 years. So it's not going to be an easy time. Some people have this false idea that the first 3.5 years won't be so bad. Let me tell you, it's going to be bad. It's going to be where 14 judgments have already been released, and 2 billion people have died. So it is going to be a terrible time frame. It's just that the last half is going to be much worse than the first 3.5. So, with that said, I want to continue reading, then we'll finish on our next session about this. But it says here, where Yahuwah says, "Go, my people, enter to your rooms and shut the doors behind you. Hide yourselves for a little while until his wrath be past," until it's over. See, Yahuwah is coming out of his place, out of his dwelling, to punish the people of the earth for their sins. This is a prophecy that has not yet happened yet. This is futuristic. This is why this is talking about the day of Yahuwah, or the day of the Lord, or Daniel's 70th week. This is all in reference to the same thing, same event. And the rapture of the church is an event that Yahuwah uses to remove believers from the earth before he pours out his wrath on unbelievers, which will be both unrepentant Jews or Yahudim and Gentiles. The purpose of the tribulation is to punish unbelieving Israel or Yasharel and unrepentant Gentiles who turned away from Yahuwah and have delighted in their wicked ways. For almost 2,000 years, Israel has refused to accept the Messiah, Yahusha. But they will, at the end of this time frame, recognize who the Messiah is and call upon him, and 1/3 of the nation of Yasharel or Israel will be saved. Thank you for your time this morning, and we'll continue this in our next sessions coming up. This is good news. I know it's for the sinners and the unbelievers. This is not good news. This is a horrible time frame to be that you're going to have to walk through unless you receive the Messiah before this time frame begins. But for those that have, we have good news. Look up, your redemption is drawing near. Shalom.